Hey everyone, good evening. It's What's Going On Malaysia, 9 o'clock as promised on a Sunday night. My apologies, kita 3 minit lambat. We're just having some technical issues. So please stay with us. And we're going to roll some other videos. Please stay with us because we're going to be having an incredible conversation with Datuk Syed Tawfik Al-Attas. But I'm going to play some clips right now. And as soon as we get the technical issues sorted out, we will be coming back with possibly the show of, I wouldn't say the show of the week, definitely the show of the month. Stay with us.
Dan Syed sebagai seorang yang membesarkan mereka, memang Syed rindu, of course. Memang Syed rindu mereka.
Anak-anak saja siapa yang jaga diorang sekarang?
Untuk sekarang ni memang mak ayah Syed yang jaga dan mereka dalam keadaan baik-baik saja. Dan untuk sedia maklumkan bahawa bawaan jaga anak Syed ni adalah bawaan jaga atas nama mak ayah Syed. So benda ni tak ada apa-apa isu. Dan Syed sebagai seorang yang membesarkan mereka, memang Syed rindu, of course. Memang Syed rindu mereka. Tapi Syed tak boleh nak kata apa-apa. Syed perlukan teruskan Syed punya, orang kata apa tu, perjalanan Syed. Biarlah mereka dalam keadaan selamat dekat sana bersama ibu ayah Syed. Dan Syed hanya di sini sentiasa memberi apa tu allowance pada mereka untuk mereka apa tu teruskan kehidupan mereka.
Okay, could you understand that statement? What did you make from the statement? The party president is very upset with you. What did you take from that? What did it mean?
That my days in the ministry are counted. This is one of the reasons why Tun Dr. Mahathir, before I received the email from him asking me to render back the position to him because he was the one who appointed me at the position. And what was the problem? Okay, the problem with that program, the One Bestari Net and few other contracts with that specific company that was initiated since the days of our former Prime Minister and who happened to be the president of my former party, it performed badly. And when their contract ended, they wanted to continue or to renew their contract, and based on the professional evaluation by professional bodies, by research teams, and by the leadership of Ministry of Education, with the advice of the Penasihat Undang-Undang of our ministry, we decided not to renew the contract. And we also received a lot of advice from the Auditor's General Report. The Auditor's General Report was talking about that, and a lot of other reports. The PAC in the Parliament has been discussing about these topics, and they are still discussing about this issue. And a lot of complaints from the teachers, from the parents, from the students, from schools. So at the end of the day, we decided not to continue with the contract. And as a result, that made what, according to the then Prime Minister, my former boss, according to him, he said that made my party president very upset. And I was called 5 times to the Prime Minister's office just to discuss about this issue. There were 2 times where I brought with me the leadership of Minister of Education to explain to the Prime Minister in length and professionally about what really happened and what led us to that decision. And the final meeting I had with him as the Minister of Education, he told me that your party president is very angry with you. And after a couple of days when I was in holiday, I received an email from him, a letter asking me to, the rest is history.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What's Going On Malaysia. My apologies for the slightly delayed beginning in the show. It is 9:06 in the evening. You know what? I'm so excited. I'm not even going to wait to bring in my special guest. He is right here, right now. Welcome to the show, Dr. Syed Ali Tawfik Al-Attas. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you very much, Harith. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, fantastic. Just to let the audience know that sebelum ni we had a couple of technical issues, but I think we are well past that right now. And I just want to remind the audience, I know there is a lot of excitement about tonight's show. I have been following your comments and your responses on the social media. Terima kasih. Please, if you are watching the show right now, please share it, because I believe tonight we are going to get a lot of value. We're going to get a lot of information and hopefully learn something that we might not already know or we might not already be thinking about with my very esteemed guest. So please share this Facebook and YouTube streaming live if you're not sharing. Just to let you know, we have a lot of people watching from all over the world. Apa khabar semua, Brian? Good evening, Tan Tian Su. Okay, first of all, Datuk, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. For the sake of the audience, how should I refer to you during the show? I know we tend to get caught up in titles and all. How would you like me to refer to you during the show?
I'm very relaxed. You don't have to be. I mean, I don't like all these dato and things like this. I've got a PhD. You can call me Syed Ali if you want. No problem.
Okay. Syed Ali, thank you so much. For the benefit of the audience, I know you come from a very distinguished family of scholars and leaders who have shaped the identity of the character of the Malay archipelago for centuries. For the benefit of the audience, can you begin by just speaking a little bit about your family, where you're from your perspective, just so that the audience has a little bit of knowledge, if they don't know who you are, where you are from, and why we are talking tonight.
I'm from Malaysia, but I like to give a different kind of answer usually when people ask me that, because it irritates me a lot. I say I'm from my mother. I was born in Malaysia, born in Petaling Jaya. I've lived here most of my life. Yes, I speak Malay. I speak Malay quite well, actually.
Yeah, kadang-kadang, when people hear you speak English, including myself, tiba-tiba, alah, Mak Saleh ni, dia boleh cakap Melayu ke? Tapi memang kita boleh cakap Melayu, itu bukan menjadi satu masalah. But at the same time, I have a lot of the audience watching in from overseas as well. So for the benefit of all parties, as usual, the show will be in English. And you, just in terms of your professional history, maybe you can spend 1 minute just giving us a brief background.
Yeah, my father is Syed Muhammad Naqib Al-Attas. My father was the founder of the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, or ISTAC.
Okay.
And my father is very, very famous all over the world. One thing, Harith, before we start this.
Yeah.
The video that I put out last time on Malaysia needs new leadership, I said that the Malaysian leaders were arrogant and they have no marwah. Apparently, that's what someone took from that discussion and put on their post. And then they said, Malaysian leaders, you are arrogant and you have no marwah. And then they quoted Syed Naqib Al-Attas, former Vice Chancellor of University of Malaya. It wasn't my father who said that, it was me. My father is Syed Muhammad Naqib Al-Attas, and he was not the former Vice Chancellor of University of Malaya. That's my uncle, Syed Hussein Al-Attas. So, I mean, these people are a little bit careless. They should make sure who says what first. Anyway, I was former Director General of IKIM. In 2005, I joined the Institute of Islamic Understanding, or IKIM. Okay. And I stayed there 4.5 years. Of course, during my time there, I was doing a lot of writing for the newspapers as well as my own books, my own works. After that, I joined the Bukhari, what's it called? The Bukhari Foundation as their advisor, because they needed help on trying to establish their university. But from probably what you can imagine, they didn't listen to any of my advice. So now we are here.
Now, indeed, we are here. And I'm just going to start off with something which not just caught my attention, but it caught the attention of a lot of people, including some very close friends of mine. And I made a short edit of that. And I played it on social media to announce you on the show. And I'm just going to play that right now. And that'll be our jumping off point for the discussion tonight. So I'm just going to play this video for the benefit of those who did not.
And therefore the whiskey is named Tima, which is the Malay word for tin. It's not a Malay name. That is where you are mistaken. Tima is not a Malay name. Fatima is an Arabic name. Tima is a Malayanized, shortened version of the Arabic name. It's not a Malay name. Remember that. Tima is a word meaning tin. It does not mean Fatima. Whether you like it or not, whether you shorten Fatima or not, it doesn't make a difference. It's not a Malay name. Fatima is the name, and that's an Arabic name. And who in their right mind would refer to the Prophet's daughter as Tima? That is what they call biadab. You have accused these whiskey people of being biadab for using that Tima name on their whiskey bottle because you said that is a shortened version of the Prophet Muhammad's daughter's name, and therefore it is biadab. I disagree. You are the one who is biadab, thinking that you can refer to the Prophet Muhammad's daughter as Tima. Who refers to the Prophet Muhammad as Mat?
Yeah. So, Syed Ali, I would just like to explain to the audience, you have not seen that video, you have a YouTube channel. Please go and check out that Syed Ali's YouTube channel. Prior to that moment, which we just showed, you actually stressed that you did not intend to speak about this particular topic. You did not want to speak about this particular topic, but for some reason you were compelled to. Now, perhaps can you give us a little bit of idea about why you did decide to speak about this particular Tima issue?
Well, from the beginning, this is not something that was recent. I mean, it happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So they were talking about this, and I thought, this is a non sequitur. It's really not an issue at all. But as time went on, and they started making police reports and pressuring the government to act against these people, I mean, that's not right. And especially by using religion as your stepping stone to get your point across. I mean, their excuses were absolutely nonsense, absolute garbage. And therefore, I felt compelled to say something.
Sir, sorry, when you say they, you keep using the word they, there. Who are you talking about?
I mean, it started off with the Consumer Association of Penang that started this whole debacle. And then after that, it went on to various other pressure groups, Muslim pressure groups. And then people in Parliament started speaking about this, and I think one of the, if I'm not mistaken, the Keadilan members or something like that was saying something about if you drink Tima whiskey, it's like drinking a Malay woman. I mean, that's completely illogical. And see, I had made videos before this. I had made videos on YouTube before this where I started talking about the corruption of knowledge and how to overcome this in our education system. And it's not the first time that I've debated with these ministers about the education system. In fact, Masli was one of the people I debated with before. And because of that, I mean, I got really irritated because from before I was saying that Malaysia is a country that is famous for red herrings. Malaysia is a country famous for this kind of nonsense. When I say Malaysia, I don't mean the people of Malaysia. I mean the leadership of Malaysia. So, I mean, they always ruin things for the rest of us. And therefore, it's time to silence them. We can't put up with this anymore. This is too much.
There seems to be a lot of, you say they always ruin things. could you be a little bit more specific? Like, for example, why would this issue, and I'm playing the devil's advocate, why would this issue be ruining anything?
Well, first of all, Islam is not a religion for fools. These people are fools. Therefore, they shouldn't think that they can use religion. And if I say them or these people, we're talking about the government of the day. Whether it be this government, the previous government, the government before that, all of them come from the same cloth. They don't listen to advice. They don't want to listen to good advice. They think they know when in fact they don't know. And they refuse to admit that. That's what we call arrogance. When you know not, and you know not, you are arrogant. Therefore, we should stay well away from them. All the Muslim scholars of the past have advised us that the person or the one who knows not and knows not, he knows not, these are people who are worse than donkeys, obstinate, and therefore stay well clear of them. And yet here we are putting them as our leadership and our government. It's not right. What kind of a people are we going to become? I mean, look at the whole political instability in this country. It's a racist kind of thing, and it's not right. We deserve better.
I do agree with you. We deserve better. Just going back to your statement, those who know not, they know not. Granted, I presume you're being a little bit general by just saying this government, the previous government, and every government is prior to this is cut from the same cloth. But is that really the fact? Is that everyone knows not that they know not? I mean, in your opinion?
Well, why don't you tell me who you think is qualified? Because in my opinion, when it comes to the present government now, the political parties, when they open their mouth and speak, does it make sense to you? Are they telling you the truth?
Okay. Has it always been this way?
No, I mean, it hasn't always been this way. Of course not. I mean, from the beginning, we've had Tunku Abdul Rahman. He was one of the best, in fact, probably the best prime minister we had. He understood what the Malays were. He understood how the Malays are. And the founder of UMNO, for instance, On Jaafar, Datuk On, he understood the Malays. He understood how the Malays were, what their character was like. He knew very well what they were like. And look at him, even when he established UMNO and he united all the Malays together, and he defined who the Malays were, even he had eventually to leave UMNO. He was so disheartened because he already saw the problems that were occurring, people fighting for position, people fighting for money. And that's not right. That was already like the birth of the Melayu Baru.
Okay, let me stop you right there. You spoke about how the Malays were, how the Malays are, and now you've just mentioned the birth of the Melayu Baru. In your own words, could you define, as was the title of this program, what do you mean by Malayu and what is Melayu Baru?
Well, if we look, we have to understand first who are the Malays. Now, okay, according to Datuk On's definition of the Malays, which I agree with and I think is good, Datuk On says the Malays are, first of all, they are Muslim. Secondly, they speak the Malay language. Thirdly, they follow the customs and traditions of the Malays. Now, the Malay language is born from their religion, right? The customs and tradition also come from their religion, from Islam, in other words. But the Melayu Baru have misconstrued that. The Melayu Baru now have defined the Malays as Malayu adalah Islam dan Islam adalah Malayu. In other words, they've conflated the two. And that's a big danger. That's not right at all. In other words, instead of saying the Malays are Muslim, you are saying now Malayu adalah Islam dan Islam adalah Malayu. That's not right. That is a completely erroneous thing to say. Not only is it wrong, but it's dangerous.
Let me just consume this for a moment. Let me just digest this. There is a difference between then Malays are Muslim or Malays are Islamic, as opposed to Melayu adalah Islam dan Islam adalah Melayu.
Of course, there's a big difference. I mean, Muslim means the true adherence to the religion of Islam. These are Muslims. But if you say Malayu adalah Islam, suddenly you are saying that you are the religion. Not you are the true adherents to the religion that is called Islam, but you are the religion. You are identified by the religion. That's not right. And that's just one thing. I mean, there are many more things I can say. I mean, for instance, what about responsibility towards the religion? There's a difference between being Malayu and being Malaysian. There's a difference between having Tanah Melayu as a land belonging to the Malays and Tanah Melayu as being a land where the Malay language is spoken. Now, which one is it? In my view, when you say Tanah Melayu, it's the land where Malay language is spoken. The lingua franca is the Malay language. That's why Kepulauan Melayu includes Indonesia, southern Philippines, Malaysia, and a bit of southern Thailand, because all of that is Malay-speaking archipelago. So why must you talk about we own this land? Nobody else does. We were the first, and then all the other arguments come into play. Who was first here? Is it they or is it the Orang Asli? And then whose land is it? I mean, you see how it becomes a big problem. When in actuality, you just have to easily solve that problem by saying Tanah Melayu means the land where Malay language is spoken predominantly. The predominant language, in other words, a dominant language, is the Malay language. What about the traditions? Sorry, go ahead, Harith.
No, please. I'm consuming this, and I am actually digesting this. It's very interesting. I've never heard someone explain it that way. That
of course not. I mean,
nobody
else has talked about this. They talk about having a right. We have a right to this country. All the time. They forget about amanah. You first have to have amanah. You first have to have responsibility before you can talk about ha. If you have a responsibility, look, you talk about responsibility towards the religion. When you accept Islam as your religion, you are responsible to it. Only then can you have a right. When you talk about language and customs and traditions of the Malays, you have to talk about a responsibility towards that language, towards that culture, towards that tradition. Then only you have the right, because you have accepted a responsibility. If you don't accept it, you cannot say that you are having any kind of right, isn't it?
Okay.
Therefore, what I'm saying is when we say Tanah Melayu, it's not referring to a people. Rather, it refers to a language, and the language defines the people. This is the thing. It's the language that defines the people. Don't you hear in Malay, they always say bahasa, what's the thing in Malay? It says budaya adalah bahasa, or bahasa adalah budaya, something like that. I mean, it's the language which gives you your bangsa, actually. The language is your bangsa. So I mean, if you look at it in the past, when we say bahasa Melayu, we don't say bahasa Malaysia, we say bahasa Melayu, because it's particular to those people who have accepted that responsibility of that language. And what was that language? That language was punctuated by the Jawi alphabet. It was punctuated by the Malay language, which was heavily influenced in terms of its identity from Islam, from the Arabic language, a language of identity. Now, what happened to the Jawi alphabet? We got rid of that and replaced it with Rumi. And then we started misspelling all kinds of other things, as if we didn't know what we were doing. We have renewed the language. That's what they think developing the language is. This is what the Melayu Baru has done. The Malay understood his language. The Malayu knows his language. The Malayu knows his religion. The Melayu Baru doesn't. The Melayu Baru thinks that the language of the Malays includes all these terms like jom, mo, this kind of nonsensical words, that are actually the very, very, they are not distinguished. Malay language is a distinguished language. It is a very scientific language. They have a system of distinction to it. It's not something that you can just play the fool with, because it's scientific. It's very precise. You don't have to have many other words to explain what you mean when you're using Malay language properly. Look at the English language and other Romance languages. That's why they call them Romance languages, because they appeal to the feelings, not to the intellect. The scientific language, like Arabic, who has a system of roots, Malay language is one of the other ones. It is a scientific language because it appeals to the akal fikiran, not to the perasaan. And because of that, the words are very specific. They're very precise. Look at what we are doing nowadays. We are removing all that specific, precise scientificness of the Malay language, and we're replacing it with a Malayanized, anglicized version. We use merealisasikan instead of menzahirkan. Melahirkan, menzahirkan already exists, isn't it? We're very literal sometimes. I remember once the Prime Minister, I won't tell you which Prime Minister it was, but the Prime Minister had a meeting with us. And in that meeting, somebody passed him an envelope. And then he said, do you know what this is? And we said, no, I don't know what it is. And he said, well, this is from the Dewan Bahasa. They want to add another word to the dictionary, Malay dictionary. What is it? Penggodam computer. I was thinking, what does that mean, penggodam computer? Apparently it means computer hacker, penggodam. But you see, the word is wrong. It's a literal translation of computer hacker, to hack. That's what menggodam means, to hack. But in Malay, when you say menggodam, you're talking about hacking with an axe, like menghayun kapa. That is menggodam. You have to actually have some force to beat. But a computer hacker is not doing that. A computer hacker, there is already a Malay word in existence. It's called penceroboh maklumat. Isn't it?
Okay.
Why must you think that you can put another one then? Penggodam, as if we are being some kind of a specialist that we are going to develop the Malay language. You are not. You are ruining it because you don't know the Malay language. And this, unfortunately, what I mean by the Melayu Baru. They don't know something and they think that they know, and they're actually diminishing the value of the language.
Which brings us back to an earlier statement you made just now about the corruption of intellect. Could you elaborate on that? We had a conversation about this, but for the benefit of the listeners and the viewers, what is happening with the intellect right now, especially in terms of this particular argument of Melayu and Melayu Baru?
You mean about the corruption of knowledge?
Corruption knowledge. Sorry, my mistake.
Is that what you're talking about? Well,
yes,
I mean, we haven't finished yet with this Melayu Baru. I mean, I can say many things about it. I mean, look, if we were to say that good character is what defines the Malays, but today money defines the Melayu Baru. You know what I mean? I mean, the Malays, they want equity. They deserve equity. That's what they want. But the Melayu Baru, they want to create wealth. That's a different thing altogether.
Please explain this. What is the difference between equity and wealth?
Oh, equity is a fair share of whatever is afforded to the people who are, the Malays of this country, the citizens of this country, from the natural resource wealth of this country. We deserve an equity. We deserve a fair share according to our capacity of work. But the Melayu Baru think that we need to create wealth amongst the Malays. They don't realize that the Melayu, what they want is they want equity. They want to be able to live in peace. They want to be able to have all their needs taken care of. They want to be able to live comfortably. They want their children to be educated well. They want a good education system. The Melayu Baru are not thinking about that. They're talking about they want to create lots of money, wealth. They want to make millionaires and billionaires. But is that really what the Malays want? No. The Malays want fairness. Why? Because the Malays, like I said just now, they understand their religion. They understand that their religion is what gives them this, the Sharia. And for them, the Sharia is the ethic and moral grounds for conduct. On the other hand, the Melayu Baru are thinking that the Sharia is limited only to law, Islamic law, and the penal code is the hudud. And therefore they think that if it's okay with the law, as long as the law says it's okay, fine, no problem. It might not be okay from the ethical or moral point, but that doesn't matter. You see, the Malays are not stupid. The Malays realize there is a big difference. And the Malay who understands this will know what I mean. The Melayu Baru, on the other hand, they are corrupting things. They are corrupting things for their own benefit, thinking they are developing things. Like I said just now, the Sharia is like a code of conduct for ethical and moral behavior for the Muslim. But they have reduced it to law. The Sharia means law. That's why they always say Sharia law, Sharia law, Sharia law all the time.
Yeah, I will admit that was my perception of it until this moment. When you were speaking, when I hear the word Sharia, I'm thinking, oh yeah, Sharia law, i.e. hudud. But you're saying it's not just about that, it's about ethical conduct as well?
Of course, it's a code. It's the code of ethical and moral conduct. That's the Sharia.
Okay. Syed Ali, whenever you talk about this Malayu who are not interested, only interested in equity, not interested in wealth, I have to admit, in my head,
I didn't say the Malays are only interested. No, I said the Malays want equity. The Melayu Baru want to create wealth. That's a big difference there. They want to make millionaires of themselves, not their society. You see what I'm saying? Look, I'll give you one hadith. There is a hadith narrated in Abu Dawood. And the hadith says, he says, give glad tidings. Don't scare people away. It says, make things difficult, make things easy and do not make things difficult. In other words, give glad tidings, don't scare people away, make things easy, don't make things difficult. This is the Prophet's hadith. Is that what's happening today? Are we using a political philosophy of fear? That's what we're doing. Takut sini, takut sana. That's another word that they like to import into the so-called language and call it Malay language. Everything is kut, this kut, that kut, jom kut. I mean, these are all village terminologies. This is no refinement to the Malay language. Like I said, the Malay language already has refined terminology. You don't have to bring in English language to put into the Malay language and then Malayanize it somehow, like when you say merealisasikan. It's not right when you already have a term there already. Doctor, it used to be called tabib in the old days. If you go down to Pudu, I think there's still one there in Pudu. There's a sign that says tabib China. And tabib is a Malay word from the Arabic, which is tabib, the doctor. Why did we have to change it? Hospital used to be mustashfa. Why did it become hospital? It only serves to confuse people, which is what you can see happening today. The Malays themselves are saying that they are confused. The Melayu Baru are the ones that are alleging they are confused. That's why they can't use the word Tima, because it confuses them. Apparently, they can't use the, what do you call it? They can't use the picture of that General Speedy, or Captain Speedy rather, not General Speedy, Captain Speedy, because it looks to them like a Muslim man on the bottle. Therefore confused. I mean, how is it they are confused so easily? Now let's remember this. Language and thought are reflexive. What I mean is this. Whatever you have in your intellect, in order for you to get it out, it has to be using language, isn't it? In other words, in order for me to explain what I have in my head to you, I have to use a certain kind of language. And that language has to be able to precisely and accurately depict what I have in my head, in my thoughts. And if I can precisely and accurately depict it to you, then you will also understand it exactly how I have said it, which means that I have been able to transfer what I've been thinking in my head to you, that you'll understand. So language and thought are reflexive. Now, if you start messing with the language, invariably, you will also mess with the way people think. And that is exactly what's happened. Look at the colonialists in the past, not the British colonialists here, the colonial governments of the French, for instance, in North Africa. What is the first thing they did to the North Africans when they came and colonized it? They started changing the Arabic language and made French mandatory for them. No more Arabic. In other words, they moved that scientific element of the Arabic language and replaced it with the language of Romance, which the French use. And therefore, now the Arabs become a bit confused because it doesn't fit with their custom, with their tradition, or with their religion. The same thing the Dutch did in Indonesia. They changed the language. Look at how how the Indonesians today spell things. It's different from the way we would understand it. Like Chen. Chen would be T-J-E-N, isn't it? In Indonesia. Here we would say C-H-E-N, very easy. But the British didn't do that when they came to Malaysia. They didn't mess with the Malay language. On the contrary, the British started writing dictionaries about the Malay language. They were so impressed with the Malay language. They wanted to ennoble the Malay language and preserve it. That was what the British did. They want to preserve the language for us. And now what do? We have Dewan Bahasa, adding all these nonsensical words which have absolutely no meaning to us to the dictionary and say we are developing the language. That's not right. We're not doing that. Look how our ministers speak. Or rather, should I say, look how our ministers stammer. Everything is can't speak properly. And that's in Malay, let alone English. Half of the cabinet can't even speak English properly. I mean, do you disagree or?
I agree. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is I did read a quote, your late uncle, Allah Yarham, Professor Datuk Dr. Syed Al-Attas, in his book, Intellectual Masyarakat Membangun, stressed about the importance of having intellectuals within the society. And you talked about this earlier. I'm just going to quote from his book. Masyarakat yang tidak mempunyai kelompok intelektual yang berfungsi akan kehilangan tingkat kesedaran dan wawasan tertentu terhadap masalah asas. So my question would be, we as Malaysians, as a whole, having this intellectual deficit at the moment, are intellectuals reluctant to play a role in shaping a better Malaysia, or because of the current situation that we're facing, political instability or national identity crisis, etc.? So I take it that you are intellectual, and there are many around like you. How come, judging by what you're saying, the cabinet or governments, not just this government, but previous governments as well, have not been made up of intellectuals?
Excuse me 1 minute, Harith. Yesterday when you were here, I talked so much that my throat hurt. I don't like this word intellectual, honestly speaking. It's not because it's not the right word. No, I mean, intellectual simply means somebody who thinks. That's all it is. Although that's what we need. We need people to think. That's what we want. We are asking now the Malay youth to use their brains, to use their akal fikiran, to use their intellect, and to think and ponder and contemplate. That's what we are doing. But when it comes to leadership, we need people who know and know they know. This is what we need. People who know and know they know. Yeah. And how do you know these people who know and know they know? Because you think about what they are saying. Think about it. Listen carefully. Don't just hear. That's another thing which sometimes, dengar tak, when you say in Malay, dengar tak? You say, yeah, I hear. That doesn't mean listen. It's a different thing altogether. Hearing simply means that you are addressing the capacity of audition, that you have the capacity to hear sound. But listening means that you are inclining your ear in deep contemplation, which means you're trying to understand what's being said. That's what we need. We need leadership who can listen, not ones who hear. And the leadership, if they're not listening and if they're not receiving advice, what's the point of them being there? They cannot be called leaders. That is not leader. See, that's another thing. Another beza di antara Melayu dan Melayu Baru is this. The Malay knows when the Malay speaks, he does his best to speak the truth. When the Malay makes a promise, he doesn't break it. When the Malay is given a trust, an amanah, he fulfills that. He doesn't shirk that trust. Now look at the Melayu Baru. When they speak, half the time it's nonsense and lies. When they make a promise, they break it. When they're given a trust, they shirk that trust. How is that good leadership? In fact, that is one of the companions of the Prophet asked the Prophet Muhammad this question: what is it that makes a good man? And the Prophet answered, he must, when he speaks the truth, he speaks the truth. When he's given a trust, he fulfills that trust. When he makes a promise, he fulfills that promise. This is the thing that makes a good man, which means it also makes a good leader, because that's the kind of person you should follow. The kind of person who, when he speaks, he's not lying to you. He's telling you the truth. He's not doing some kind of hela. You see?
May I suggest that the characteristics you are suggesting make up a good Melayu are actually just human characteristics, good people, good persons,
of course.
Regardless of race, regardless of where they're from.
Of course, but when we are talking today in this country about the leadership qualities and the difference between the Malays and the Melayu Baru, I'm just trying to point out, so you see where I'm going now.
Yeah.
One is like this, the other is like that. One is positive, the other is negative. That's the thing.
Okay.
We should not be proud, basically, of calling ourselves Melayu Baru, Generasi Melayu Baru. I've heard this before, and so have you, from the leaders. Inilah Generasi Melayu Baru. It's not a good thing. It's a negative.
In that case, because I've seen a lot of arguments online, even as we're speaking right now, I'm noticing people are saying, oh, that's just part of modernization. That's just, that's, you can't avoid that. You can't stop it.
You can't avoid
there was
what?
a question, the changing of these words and the shortening of words, that's just a part of modernization.
No.
So what's...
That's not a part of modernization. That's a part of modernity. That's a part of the secular philosophical program that tries, like I said, language and thought are reflexive. Once they change the language and mess with it, you also change the way the person thinks. And that's the problem. Therefore, we are not saying that language should not develop. It does develop. But you also have to have a reasonable and scholastic view and a vision of how the language develops. It is not something that you borrow from the English language and then you decide that you're just going to Malayanize it, when already there exists in the Malay language precise terminology. Look at how if you today were to write a letter or to talk to the sultans, any of the sultans, the kind of language you use is very different from the kind of language that you use normally in the village or in the pasar, isn't it?
True.
You can't go and talk to the sultans like that. Hey, apa khabar, Kut? Jom pergi sini, jom pergi sana. You'll never say that because they say it's biadab. That's the thing. The language also has an adab, and therefore we should preserve this adab. It's not that modernization is the reason why we should change. No, that's the influence of modernity. It's a different thing from modernization.
I see what you're saying. Before this, I was looking at it as the other way. But what you're saying is by changing these words, changing the language, you're therefore causing
it changes the meaning.
It changes the meaning.
And
so,
when it changes the meaning, it changes the way you understand.
Okay, so how do you propose that we raise the level of understanding, or to use the word that you don't like to use, the intellectualism of the Melayu, or in Malaysia? So,
I mean, when I spoke of education, I was not talking about the Malays alone. I was talking about everyone.
Yeah.
And therefore, I mean, when it says how do we overcome these difficulties, it's through education. And already we can see our education system, as I mentioned to the former minister, Masli, that it's completely broken. They don't seem to understand that. The education system is completely broken. And see,
how is it broken? How is it broken, sir?
Oh, see, the Malays understood, again, what education was to them. They knew how to teach in the past. They knew how important the logic of consequence was, that they needed to teach the children how the logic of consequence works. Of course, they're not using this kind of word because it's a bit too big. They will never understand this. So how did they do this? They used it through their language and through their pantun dan sloka. These are the kind of things that they try to teach their children from small. And this logic of consequence is, if you do this, then the consequence is this. And therefore, what they're saying is, if you want to teach the child how to think properly, you teach them the logic of consequence. And they teach this through pantun dan sloka for small kids. And it goes on like that. But for us, we should start teaching the language properly, Malay language. We should start looking at Malay literature. And I'm not talking about these cerita romance and cerita seram and all these kind of myth and legend nonsense. I'm talking about the actual works of the Malays of the past who have been ignored for so long. Teach them that literature. Now we need to teach this in higher education, institutes of higher education. That's where it needs to start. It needs to start from the top, and then it'll filter down, not the other way around. We've always been going from the bottom up. That's nonsensical. You start from the top and then it filters the way down. Therefore, you have to first tackle your higher institutions of learning. Look at all our graduates now. They come out of the university, sometimes I wonder whether they actually learned anything. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the curriculum. It's the fault of the system itself. And they are the ones who are now suffering because of that. We need to teach language properly. We need to teach history. We need to teach philosophy. There is a a Malay philosophy. There is a Malay history. There is a Malay, what do you call it? Sufi path. There's all these things that we are ignoring, and we have ignored for the past 50 years. Gradually, we're trying to erode all of this. That's our identity. The Malays understand this. The Malays understand how important it is. The Melayu Baru, on the other hand, don't. They think that history is irrelevant. Philosophy is irrelevant. And when it comes to history, what they mean is tawarikh, not sejarah. They mislabel things. Well, tawarikh simply means dates. Like when we were in school, we started 1511, Alfonso de Albuquerque landed in Malacca. This is the kind of thing, dates. But the sejarah, it teaches you the when, the what, and the why. The why is very important. Why is the thing that teaches you what happened and how these things happened and why these things happened. That's what we need to know. But if we don't teach that, sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah, I forgot my train of thought now.
Okay. No, the reason what came to mind was our conversation the other day, and I would like to recap that, where since we're talking about sejarah and tarawih, sorry, was that the word you used? You were talking about to me the other day about sejarah and hang tuah and that sejarah, and how you said, in your opinion, the sejarah that we are taught. I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but what I remember you saying was, it's not real, or it's not facts, or it's not right. Could you explain that?
Yeah. What I meant was that what we call Sejarah Melayu today, that we teach in school as Sejarah Melayu, in other words, Malay genealogy. What we are teaching there, we are teaching it as history. But in reality, that should be taught as literature. It should be a book of literature, not a book of historical fact, because there is a lot of fiction in that book as well. These people who are so-called acclaimed by the Melayu Baru here as the ones who have truly existed, all these hang, this and that, hang jabat, hang lakir, hang tuah. These people didn't even exist. If they were the Laksmana of Sultan Mahmud, they would be Muslim, but these names are not Muslim names. And if they existed, surely you would find a record of them in the writings of the Chinese, in the writings of the Arabs who came to this part of the world. Surely you would find it in there, but you don't. Therefore, I think that these things, although they should be taught as literature, not as history.
Okay. I just saw a comment that apparently all the hang tuah and all is no longer taught in sejarah.
No. I mean, in that book, Sejarah Melayu, I'm referring to the book Sejarah Melayu. That is not a book of history. That is a book of literature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it should be taught as such.
We were also talking that day about this whole focus on haram.
On what?
And you on the word haram, everything now is haram this and haram that. And you brought up something really interesting. And I first have to apologize to everyone who is watching. If we seem to be jumping topics, is because I met up with Dr. Syed Ali a couple of days ago, and there was so much that we spoke about, and I would like to bring that up again, and I'd like the listeners to hear this, because you were talking about the word dosa, which then it struck me, oh yes, I've not heard that word in a long time. When I was growing up, you were not allowed to do things, and you were discouraged because of the potential dosa, and now everything has become haram, haram, haram. Could you explain the essential difference, and what is then, or what is now versus what is then?
All right. Well, years ago, I already said this. I mean, about 15 years ago, and I was at IKIM. I used to write in the newspaper in Utusan Melayu. In Malay, I would write. And I used to say that how is it today that we have everything haram and halal? Sedangkan in the Quran, it's very clear already what is haram. Very clear. And the Malays, they understand this. The Malays understand what is haram and what is halal. And then today we have the benefit, and I use the benefit very liberally, the benefit of all these so-called ulamas who come up with all kinds of arguments, and then they brand things to be haram and halal. They forget that it is Allah's prerogative alone to say that something is haram or halal. Allah's prerogative alone. When did these people assume that they could speak on Allah's behalf and start labeling things as haram? That's not right. The Malays of the past, they knew. They didn't say haram. They would say dosa. And even when they said dosa, they knew that there were different grades of dosa. There was the small dosa, there was the big dosa. And we knew this. For instance, if you were to shout at your parents, they wouldn't say, "Oi, ini haram ni." They would say dosa. And they would say dosa besar. Why? Because they know that shouting and disrespecting one's parents and not being respectful to them was a big sin. It was equivalent to the sin of ascribing a partner to God. That's how big the sin was. You know, they would say dosa.
Okay.
They would not say haram. So this today, nowadays, when they put haram to everything, or halal, I mean, it's not right. It's not right at all. And then the Muslims become confused. It's like I said, the Sharia is an ethical and moral code of conduct. The Malays know this, but the Melayu Baru today don't. They think it's just law. And therefore they need the ulama, and I use it again liberally with this word ulama, because they are not really ulama. But they come. And ulama is somebody who is able to understand knowledge, who knows what knowledge is, and not limit. I mean, knowledge is a massive thing, isn't it? It's a huge thing to say. Ilm is huge. It's not limited to just law. It's not limited to fiqh today. It's not limited to any of these things. And therefore the Malay, the new Malay, the modern Malay become confused. Before doing anything, tanya dulu ustaz, tanya dulu mufti, boleh ke tidak? Apa hukum dia? Why? Sometimes even the Malay language already has the hukum in the language, and they don't even realize it. Like if you were to say, bila salam diberi, wajib dibalas. The hukum is there already, wajib dibalas. Bila salam diberi, bila salam diucap, wajib dibalas. It's already there. And it's a beautiful language. What's wrong with using such a beautiful language? The Malay language is a really beautiful language, truly beautiful language. But people don't use it much today anymore. They mix it up with a lot of other things. They mix it up with anglicized, Malayanized versions. That's not right. You are doing an injustice to the language, an injustice to the people also who have accepted responsibility for that language. It is our right, the right of those who have accepted responsibility to preserve that language and to keep it the way it is, and to keep it as a language of akal fikiran, as a language of beauty, as a language of science, as a language of distinction, as a language of adab. It is doing injustice to those people who have taken that responsibility to preserve it.
Okay. Just based on what you were just saying just now, I do notice over the years, there's, every time something happens, people jump, shall I say Melayu Baru, jump and melenting and say, awak tak boleh cakap pasal ni sebab ini agama. You have no right to speak about this because you don't know agama, as if they know agama. And it seems to become something that people hide behind just to shut others down. Awak tak tahu, awak tak boleh cakap, awak bukan orang agama, beragama. Why has this become such a thing that now you just, to stop someone talking, to stop someone questioning, to stop someone asking, you just throw agama and we're all meant to stop and not say anything?
It's ignorance.
What?
Pure and simple ignorance. And it's arrogant to think that it's not because of ignorance. It is, because you don't know the answer. You don't know how to answer. You don't know how to argue. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. You should be asking questions. If you don't know, ask. Don't think that, oh, ini tak boleh, ini tak boleh. You can't ask because you are not Muslim. That's ridiculous. It's, you know, that's another thing that the Malays understand and the Melayu Baru don't. The Malays, they understand that there is difference. And that is the correct way, actually. We are not the same religion, we are different. We are not the same racial fabric, we are different. We are not the same language, we are different. They know this. But it's that difference that makes us bond together. It's the difference that we know of that makes us find the similarity. It's not the other way around. People always say to me, no, 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 we have to look for what's similar. But that's exactly it. You can only know what is similar through the principle of difference. I'll give you an example, Harith.
Yeah.
Let's say you are sitting down. You're sitting down now, obviously. Let's say you have more than one chair. Looks exactly the same as the one you're sitting in. Does your mind look at both of these chairs? Does your intellect tell you that they're both the same? They are the same. They look the same. They are the same chair. But does your intellect tell you that they are the same? That's not the way the intellect works. Your intellect says there is no difference between the two. And that's how you say, you understand that there is similarity, because there's no difference. The intellect is always doing that. It's always estimating, always judging, always doing that, always, whether you are conscious of it or not. It is always doing that, trying to find similarity in difference. Now, the Malays know that we are different. They know that we are different religions, different cultures, different language, different peoples. They know this. And that is what binds us together, because we see the difference there. We don't talk about the things that we know are going to be sensitive to each other, because we understand that difference. Today, we don't understand each other at all. And then we are talking about, oh, no, let's come together. Let's just emphasize what we share together. How will you know what you share together if you don't know what you have is different?
I will play the devil's advocate again, because what appears to be breaking the society, or separating the races, is the difference. Oh, diorang lain daripada kita. They eat
okay, tell us, what is the difference?
Well, yeah, so this is just my opinion. The difference, because someone is different, they eat something different, they have a different culture, then there's a fear attached that, oh, they are different, they are not the same, therefore I must.
Why should there be fear? If someone eats pig, and you know that, and you know that's different from what you eat, because you can't eat pig because it's haram, why does it bother you? Why should it even concern you at all? It's got nothing to do with you. What he eats is not your concern. What he drinks is not your concern. If you are a Muslim and you are prohibited from drinking whiskey, Tima whiskey, for instance, why is it your problem? It's got nothing to do with you.
The argument would be that, oh, because they used a Malay word, or a
well, I've already
Malay
explained
sounding word. No, I have to say, I'm in total agreement with you. Okay, I'm just going to bring this up right now, because I was talking about it with a friend earlier. Bulan Puasa, when I was young, we all, puasa, and we sat around with our friends who didn't puasa, and it seemed to be totally okay. A friend of mine was telling me he's not Malay. During Bulan Puasa, he went to a restaurant, ordered some food, and he was refused food, and he was told to wait after Buka Puasa, although he's not Malay Muslim. And he was asking me, hey, is it a law that I cannot eat during Bulan Puasa? That he didn't know it was a law. It's not a law, but the difference now is, oh, kita berpuasa, jadi awak tak boleh makan depan kita. When did that happen? Why does it happen? Can you intellectually explain that? Because I actually don't understand. Once
again, ignorance. What has it got to do with us? If the fellow wants to eat and he's not a Muslim, he's going to eat, so what? And that's part of puasa as well, because it tries to teach you patience, isn't it? Don't tell me that simply because you see somebody else eating, you tak boleh tahan, you have to eat and then batal puasa, and therefore you blame him. It's ridiculous. Again, another difference between the Malays and the Melayu Baru. You just said it just now, yourself. You said in your day, earlier when you were a young boy, obviously, this is what used to happen. You used to eat with your friends and buka puasa with your friends. Yeah, so what? Now, of course, you are different. You are much older. Perhaps you know the religion of Islam better. And if you want your non-Muslim friends to experience the fasting month with you, encourage them. Okay, we can experience fasting together, but you have to fast as well, just like me. Then you can experience it. Teach them the niyyah. Let them learn the niyyah. Let them learn how to fast with you. Then you can really experience what it feels like, where you cannot drink, you cannot eat, you cannot. You have to be patient. You cannot try to fly off the handle because you know your sensitivities are heightened when you're starving and you're thirsty. You become very cranky. I don't know about you, but I'm a terrible person during the fasting month.
Okay. Well, then I'll remember. I'll remember to avoid you.
Sorry. I mean, it's just that. It's just pure ignorance, plain and simple. And I think that is also a bad thing, a negative thing, because once again, from the beginning, we said that if you conflate Malayu with Islam and Islam adalah Malayu, Malayu adalah Islam, you're conflating the two together. And the danger with that is, if you conflate Malayu and Islam, whatever the Malayu does which is not right will reflect on the religion, not on the adherent. You see, this is what the secular philosophical program does. It tweaks the words a little bit, and I'll give you a good example of how that will affect the way you think. In the past, Muslims have been known as Muslims from the time Islam was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. We have been called Muslims from then. Yes? Now, our association with the non-Muslim world, they have always tried to call us other than Muslim. First, they tried calling us Muhammadans, adherents of the Prophet Muhammad. That didn't stick. So they went on to something else. Now, they are calling us Islamists. In fact, just the other day, somebody was commenting, Syed Ali is one of the prominent Islamists. I really hate that word. You can call me a Muslim. What's the harm? Don't be saying Islamist, because if I say something or I do something which is against the religion of Islam, which is against the Sharia, the moral and ethical code of Islam, then who is to blame? Is it me? Or will you blame the fact that I'm an Islamist, and therefore the name of the religion becomes intertwined, and invariably Islam becomes the victim? And that's not correct. But that's what they try to do. It's a very insipid thing. Just change the word a little bit and call you Islamist. Harith Iskandar is an Islamist. And then the notion is that, that means that Harith Iskandar, now I should find him wearing a thobe, a jalabiya, putting on a skull cap and tasbih and a prayer rug over the shoulder. That one is a great Muslim. It's ridiculous when people look at the outward appearance to define you. That's the problem. The Malays are defined, like I said, Muslim, the Malay language, the culture, and the traditions of the Malays. But today, they have confused that. They have made it even more unbelievable. The Malay now is defined as something else. Now he has a certain color of his skin. His nose has to be a certain width. The way he speaks has to be a certain way. That one is a Malay. You can't have skin like mine. I'm too white. You can't have this beard because, local people, sometimes they can't grow this kind of a, thick mane like this. It always looks like it's, it's always in the process of becoming a beard, never actually being one. Or the ones that have beard but no mustache, like the Quaker Oats guy. What is that? You mean to tell me, I'm following the Sunnah? You mean to tell me the Prophet had a beard but no mustache? Go and look at the descriptions of the Prophet in the Seerah.
Based on what you're saying, what is your opinion or what is your thoughts on this very prevalent thing that happens when a Malay Muslim does something or says something which apparently is not, or against Islam? The Melayu Baru jump on them and, awak bukan orang yang bagus, or you're not a good Muslim. And then when I question, like, do you need to say that, or do you need to point that out? It is our job, it is our responsibility to to accuse or to point out or to warn or to, I mean, is that part of being a good Muslim?
What specific example can you cite? Can you cite a specific
So for example, yes, I adopted a two-legged dog a year and a half ago. It had been abused, and the two front legs were amputated, and we decided to take this animal in and try and look after him, and online, socially, half the Malayus were like, "Hey, well done, looking after God's creatures," and the other half were, I guess, what would the word be? Attacking me to, not being a good Muslim. And I'm not making a judgment of whether I am or not. I'm just trying to work out, when I ask him, "Oh, what compels you to do this?" "Oh, I am compelled because I need to teach you. I need to, it is my job to warn you, to let you know," as if I didn't know. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, because that seems to be very, very hot on social media.
Okay, well, there is, I suppose that they may be well-intended. We're not going to condemn them for this.
Yeah.
They may be well-intended, but, like I said on one of my videos before, that hell is paved with good intention. Anyway, what they might be referring to is, there is a hadith of the Prophet. It's narrated by Al-Khudri, if I'm not mistaken. It says, if you see something wrong, make the effort to change it, either with your words, with your hand, or with your heart, although that is the weakest. And therefore, probably they think that they're following that hadith by telling you that this is not right, you shouldn't be doing this, is against Islam. But actually, that is not against Islam. You see, the problem is this. The dog is typically considered unclean. It's not the dog, because it's the saliva of the dog. And because the dog is such a loving creature, it likes to, get on top of you and lick you all over the place and things like this. The najis part is the saliva. And therefore, if the dog is licking you all over the place, then you have to do all this sama and everything like that. But the dog itself is not najis. It's the saliva. So the Malays typically won't have dogs in the house. That's all. It's got nothing to do with religion, because then you can tell them this story. I mean, the religion part is the najis of the saliva. And because of the character, the dog is a very friendly animal. That's all. I mean, you can train the dog not to lick you, isn't it? It's not like the dog can't be trained. But there's another story we can tell. The story of the ulama, or the imam, who kicked the cat, and the story of the prostitute who saved the dog. The imam died and found himself going to hell. And he was surprised. Why? I was an imam, good Muslim, but I kicked the cat. He found himself in hell because he was cruel to the animal. Whereas the prostitute, even though she was a prostitute, she was kind to the animal, and therefore her sin of prostitution was forgiven. You see what I'm saying? The point being that we have to be kind. Kindness, that's what Islam is all about. We have to be kind to Allah's creatures and creation. And that's the Malay way. The Malays understand this. If today, now, we are on this trend of becoming an ESG economy, an environmental and a social and a governance economy, we are going to fail on all fronts if we have the same leadership in government today. Because these particular Melayu Baru don't respect the environment like the Malays do. Don't respect the environment like the other races in this country who understand their own traditions and cultures and religions do. We don't respect the environment. Look at the problem of water in this country. Every few months we'll have sakat here, sakat there. Why? Pollution. Some people dumping some chemicals into the rivers and streams. Why is it we can't solve that problem? What kind of people are we? Cleanliness is first and foremost in Islam. We need water. And yet we are destroying the very thing that we need. Our wildlife. Malaysia is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of diversification and diverse wildlife. And yet we are destroying the habitat they live in. poaching is rampant, all because of greed. All because of greed for money and profit, the creation of wealth, which is what the Melayu Baru want. They want to be rich. They want to live as a millionaire in a big house. Doesn't matter whether they are biadab or not. That's not the Malay way. They want to be comfortable, yes. But they're not going to be biadab. They have adab. They understand it. Look at our society. How are we going to live in this kind of a future economy if our social fabric is gradually being eroded? That's not the way to do things. We should not start with all this racial politics, race-based, and that is against Islam. There is no race like that in Islam. We don't say that one race is more noble than the other. Never. Your nobility and your piety and your rank is determined by your behavior and your actions and your ethics and your morals, not your race. We are not Talmudic Jews, are we? We are not saying that we are the Talmudic Jews, but we are behaving like that. I know they won't like this, but you know, what can I say?
I think you have said quite a lot, Datuk. Jadi, maafkan kalau saya nak mencadangkan ataupun saya nak bertanya soalan ni dalam bahasa Malaysia, sebab soalan ni mungkin saya nak menunjukkan kepada mereka yang faham bahasa ni. So, saya lihat Datuk dah bagi banyak cadangan ataupun banyak pendapat tentang Melayu Baru dan bezanya dengan Melayu. So, apakah nasihat Datuk kepada Melayu hari ini supaya kami, I'm not going to say mereka, kami boleh mencapai kemajuan yang lebih bermakna mengikut cadangan Datuk, supaya kita menjadi bukan saja bangsa yang lebih maju ataupun lebih bagus, tapi bangsa yang what's the word, how should I, yang boleh mencapai semua yang Datuk cadangkan.
Ya, kita harus menggunakan akal fikiran. Jangan semata-mata dan sewenang-wenangnya mendengar apa yang dibicarakan dalam medan siasa, seolah-olah mereka yang tahu. Sebenarnya, gunalah akal fikiran sendiri. Gunalah akal fikiran yang diberikan oleh Allah kepada kamu. Fikirlah. Jangan senang-senang saja telan apa yang dicadangkan atau dibicarakan atau dipujukkan.
Okey. Dengan itu, saya nak mengucapkan terima kasih. Thank you so much, Syed Ali, for really some valuable insights and valuable thoughts that you have shared with us. Is there anything that we have not touched on that you would like to just mention just before we call this a night?
I can't think of anything. I mean, perhaps if you think of something and you'd like me to come back, I would have no problem doing that.
I would not just like you to come back and have another chat like this, but I would absolutely love it. And I actually hope that the next time we do this, we'll actually be in the same room.
Yes.
The endemic has moved on, and we get into a situation where we are allowed to, following the correct SOPs, have a face-to-face discussion once again.
I would love that. Meeting in
Thank
person.
you so much. And I did promise you a little story.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to hear that.
You'll like to hear this. Okay, guys, everybody. So when I met up with Syed Ali earlier, he said, I've always wanted to hear that story you told some time back. So this was something that I used to tell in my stand-up set many years ago. Well, not that many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. It related to the time when we were young as kids, and we would during Chinese New Year and Hari Raya get ang paos and duit raya. And back in those days, we didn't get notes. We got coins, because 10 sen, 20 sen, 50 sen. We even had the ringgit, satu ringgit coin back in those days. And we would collect the coins, and God forbid, we would keep them in piggy banks. I know, we had piggy banks shaped like a pig, and is made out of porcelain, and we put our coins in. And I had a very heavy piggy bank full of coins collected over the years. And one day I came home from school and I found my piggy bank had broken and all my coins were gone. And I knew that I had lost a lot of money. And I went to my brother's room and I saw some coins, and there was 2 1 ringgit coins and 3 20-cent coins, which I knew it were not his. And I accused my brother. I said, his name is Joe. I said, Joe, you stole my money. And he said, no, I didn't steal your money. What do you mean? I said, you broke my piggy bank, you stole my money. And he said, no, I didn't. I said, what's that? And I pointed on the table. I said, look, there's 2 1 ringgit and 3 20 cents. It's 2.6. 2.6. You have 2.6 in your hand, and that does not belong to you. You stole it. And he said, no, I did not steal it. My friend gave it to me. I said, what friend? He said, my Arab friend. Why would your Arab friend give you 2.6? And he said, okay, never mind. I'll give it back to him. And he gave my 2.6 back to his Arab friend. So the story relates to no particular figures, real or fictitious. Just like to let everybody know.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Harry. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Story. Thank you so much, Dr. Syed Ali. I really appreciate all your time, and thank you everyone for commenting. And everyone has absolutely amazing. Please bring him again. Yes, we will. Muhammad Izzar, we want more. I would want more as well. We're gonna do this face to face very, very soon again. Terima kasih sekali lagi, Syed Ali, and I wish you all the best. And I will be seeing you
very much.
again real soon.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Take care.
Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. Thank you, Wahida, through Akal Fikran Allah gives, not to animals. Search and sing, best comment, no race supremacy, no apartheid. Wow, the comment sections are blowing up. Listen, everyone, if you have been watching this, I hope you have shared this live streaming. And if you are watching this after the fact, I know many of you don't watch it live on this Sunday night. If you are listening to it on Spotify, or if you are watching it after the fact, the next day or the next week, thank you for tuning in, basically. And I do hope you continue to share this episode. It's been very valuable for me. I do this show, What's Going on Malaysia, because basically I'm looking for the answer to that question. What's going on Malaysia? There are so many aspects to this amazing, beautiful country that I'm still trying to work out, and I'm still trying to analyze, and I'm still trying to make sure that we're heading in the right direction and in the right path. Now, did we find the answer to the question, what's going on Malaysia tonight? Not in its entirety, but I do believe we are a couple of steps closer to finally answering that question. And greatly in debt to my wonderful guest tonight. Guys, if you've not seen him or heard his videos, please go to YouTube, type in his name, Syed Ali Tawfik Al-Attas, and he's got a whole stream of videos on YouTube. Please subscribe to his channel as well, and also subscribe to my channel on YouTube. I wouldn't say there is many learnings on my channel, but I'm always on the process of gaining more information. So thank you once again. I hope you've had a good time. It's a Sunday night. Thank you for staying up with us. My next guest I will be announcing in just a couple of days. And until then, please take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Mask up if you're going out. We're still in the middle of this endemic, which will last on for a while yet. And other than that, I hope you've been well. And terima kasih. Assalamualaikum kepada anda semua, and thank you for watching. And you know what? Stay safe, and in the words of Syed Ali, be kind. Terima kasih. Good night. I'll see everyone real soon.